Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of PILOTCLIMB. Alright, so this is the part 3 of a series of 3 videos where we are actually trying to understand how we should handle the bad weather. In the first video, the first part, I strongly recommend you to watch the first 2 parts, okay? We made the preparation for takeoff for a bad weather, so rain and wet runway and so on. And then the second video we actually took off, we climbed and we discussed how we can avoid the bad weather, okay, looking at the weather radar. And this video I want to talk to you about what you should do, what you should consider when you are in cruise and you find out that you've got some bad weather in front of you, sun CPs. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump right into today's topic. So as you can see, we are on board of a Boeing 777, okay. What I want you to be focused is on the navigation display, which is this one in there, okay. As you can see in the navigation display, it's actually telling us that we've got some weather returns in there. I'm gonna pause the video for a second so we can actually analyze the weather radar with no rush, okay. What I want to make sure that is clear, it's how you can actually face this situation, okay. So what I want to make sure you understand is that, let's say you have a route that goes straight into this situation in here, okay. So what you should take into consideration, what action you should take in order to avoid this weather, okay, because for sure you don't want to go into it, okay. So as you can see from the weather radar, okay, from the navigation display here, we've got some green areas all around here, then we've got some yellow areas down there, then we've got some red areas, and then we've got some magenta areas, okay. I'm quite sure you are familiar, but in case if you're not familiar with these colors, the green part is the light rain, okay. So basically the weather radar sends the waves, okay, from the aircraft. You have to imagine like radio altimeters, okay, like a radar, okay. I made a separate video where I talked about radio altimeter. If you're interested, okay, the link in the description below. But anyway, you have to imagine like the radar of your aircraft will send some waves, okay. These waves, if the sky is clear, they will not find anything to reflect on, okay. So in a nice day, the weather radar doesn't show anything because there is nothing to reflect on. But in a bad day, like today's example, okay, what will happen is that the weather radar, this is your aircraft, okay, the weather radar will send the waves, okay, then the waves find out there are some precipitation in there, and then the wave that you send is going to go back to your aircraft, and then he understands the speed of the wave and the time that elapsed between the waves when it left the aircraft and came back, and it can actually give you the exact positions where the weather is located, okay, in the navigation display. So now the green part is the light rain, the yellow part, like in here, let me make it bigger, okay, yeah, here it's even better. Okay, so the green part is the light rain, okay, as you can see in there. The yellow part is the moderate rain, and the red part is the heavy rain, okay. So it's very intuitive. So what you can do, actually, you can say, okay, green is green, yellow is a little bit more important, okay, and then red is very serious, okay. The magenta area is where the turbulence is, okay, because the weather radar in this case, as you can see in here, it says WX plus T, means weather plus turbulence, okay. And this is an automatic, basically what we are doing, using the weather radar in automatic mode. So what will happen is that the weather radar will scan automatically for weather in front of you, okay. So what will happen is that when you are flying, depends on the weather radar, okay, but normally if you're using the turbulence feature, within 50, 60, 70, depending again on the weather radar, you should get the turbulence informations as well, like in this case. So as you can imagine already, the green is fine, yellow is okay, depending on how you actually read through the weather, okay. Then red and magenta is a no-go. Okay, you never want to go into the red and into the magenta, okay, because it's heavy precipitation and very big turbulence, okay, because if the turbulence is indicated in here, means that it's something very serious, okay. So now, if you look at the picture in here, let me zoom in, okay. If you look at the picture, okay, let's say you've got the route goes straight into that one, into this weather phenomenon here, okay. My question to you is, what would you turn? Would you turn to the right or would you turn to the left? Okay, leave in the comment below your answer and then I will tell you my answer, okay. So when you actually have got this situation here, you have multiple choices, okay. So it depends, because as you can see we are flying at 11,000 feet. You can even climb a lot higher and fly above it, but make sure you got enough space between you and the weather phenomenon, because you don't just want to go above it, because depending on the weather phenomenon it might be some cumulus nimbus, like in that case, that are actually forming, and because they are forming there are big turbulence above the clouds. So if you look outside, we can see already this weather in here. Okay, so by switching in and out the view, you can really see the top of the weather returns, okay, the wind, which is around here, okay. But you don't want just climb and fly just above this top in there, because the turbulence is gonna be all around here, okay. So you need to have, let's say, 5,000 feet of vertical separation, okay, in order to make sure it's a smooth situation, okay. It really depends on the weather. So, and that's where the experience come into play, because then with the experience you actually know how to read the weather and what action you should do. Okay, what I want to make sure that you understand, that a part of climbing, okay, so normally the good thing of the jet aircraft such as the 777, the 737, is that since the aircrafts are very powerful, or the Airbus 380, 320 and so on, the jet planes are so powerful that normally you climb above the weather and you fly above the weather. Okay, so the colleagues that flies ATRs, for example, they have a lot more to do with the weather, because they fly around. I don't really know the cruise of them, but they fly lower compared to a jet plane, and in a lower altitude is where the most weather is present. Okay, but in our case, normally we climb and we fly above the weather. However, there might be some situations where even though you are in cruise, okay, let's say you are 35,000 feet and you still find some weather. In my career, happened to me many times that during cruise 31, 32, 33,000 feet I had to avoid weather. In that situation, if you're flying already at high altitude, that climb is not really a big option, because you don't want to climb more if you're already at the limit part of your climb. Because let's say your performance is the limit on your climb, okay, you're already at very high altitude, let's say 37,000 feet. What will happen if you climb more in order to avoid weather? You're gonna get into the coffin corner situation that I explain in a separate video. Okay, if you don't know what the config corner is, there will be a link description below. Okay, the video link in the description below. Okay, so in that case you cannot climb a lot more, because if you climb more you get into the coffin corner. So the pre-stall and the low speed pre-stall and high speed buffet will go very close. In that case you don't want to fly into a turbulent air with very tight margins, okay, because if you fly slower you go into the pre-stall, or if you fly faster you go into the MMO, okay, the Mach critical situation. All right, so sometimes the only option, like in this case today, 11,000 feet is a good option to climb for sure if you don't want to go and avoid left and right. But let's say instead of flying at 11,000 feet, like in this case, we will have been already at 40,000 feet, and let's say that's the limit of our aircraft. So in that case, the climb is not an option. The only thing you can do is turn to the left or turn to the right. So by looking at the navigation display, we need to take a decision whether to climb to the left, to go to the left, or go to the right. Okay. My personal choose, I will choose to go to the left for sure. If you ask me why, it's because when you are avoiding weather, as you can see in front of us, we are pretty much in the middle of it, okay? And we are approaching that. And our route is straight in here, okay? We have to imagine like that. Our route would have gone through that if you would have not done anything, okay? So I will go to the left, because when you're avoiding weather, you should take into consideration the wind, okay? So as you can see, this is the wind, 229 degrees, 33 knots. That means that the wind is actually pushing this weather in this direction. So it's going from the left to the right, the wind, okay, from our perspective, okay. So by the time you are avoiding, you turn left in there, okay, you avoid the weather in there, and the wind is helping you because it's pushing the weather away. And on top of that, since the wind is pushing that direction, the turbulence is in this area. So normally if you pass in here, you might encounter turbulence for sure, but you will encounter a lot less turbulence by passing in there. And on top of that, if you start doing this and you're flying a track that is going to the right, since the wind is pushing the weather in that direction, you will find yourself making more turns to the right in order to keep the clearance from the weather, okay? And the opposite is also true. If you fly a track to the left, the wind will push the weather away, so the first and initial track change might be enough, okay? All right, guys, so this is very important that you take into consideration the wind, okay, because normally the wind is gonna help you a lot on taking your decision. Okay, so what we're gonna do next? we actually gonna try to turn left and do the avoidance. Okay, and now another question will be, yes, but how much to the left? Okay, it really depends again on your experience and on your let's say on your weather, okay, on the situation that you've got in front of you. As you can see in here, this is very bad CB from my point of view, because how you can actually identify a bad weather compared to a good weather, I mean a huge CB compared to a not that big CB, is that the more clear is the picture in there. As you can see, it's a very clear circle, and that means that there's a good CB that is forming there, quite strong. And as you can see, inside is full magenta, okay, so I can actually make this bigger. So as you can see in here is full magenta, full red, full yellow, and full green. So this is a very big CB, okay, very dangerous. You don't want to fly in there, okay. As you can see here, the weather is a lot more like it's spread it around, okay. So you've got some greens in there, some yellows in there, but this is very concentrated. You've got magenta, red, yellow, and green all almost in the same place. That means that this is a tower, okay. So it's a CB that goes that is climb quite fast, okay. So what we want to do, we want to avoid that, and we want to as well keep a little bit of clearance, horizontal clearance, because you don't want to fly very close to it, because even though you don't fly inside but you're flying close to it, you will still feel the turbulence, okay. In my career, then it's trial and error, because in my career I made some mistakes. Of course, sometimes I avoided the weather was not enough. I will even if it was safe, because I didn't went into that situation, but I didn't take enough clearance horizontally, so I could still experience the turbulence, okay. So in a situation like that, I will try to keep around between 10 and 20 miles of horizontal separation, okay. So what we're gonna do next, we're gonna try to avoid that, okay. So we're gonna actually start to avoid, but then I don't know if you're gonna go all the way down to the avoidance, because it's gonna take a long time, okay. Let me see. Okay, let's start, let's unfreeze the simulator. So the first thing you want to do is to turn to the left, okay. So that's my plan, okay. I will turn to the left again because of the wind, okay. So we turn to the left in there, and as you can see, this is our track and this is our heading, okay. So what we want to do, we want to add a little bit more of heading in order to have our track, the white line, to be in there. So that is the CB that we talked about. There we go. So as you can see now, there is another problem here, because as you can see now, the wind has changed, okay. Here we go. As we turn, okay, we found out that we've got a lot, some more weather in there. So let me reduce the range in there. Okay, the weather should come up in a second again, hopefully. It's a little bit slow. In real life, the weather radar is a lot faster. So as you can see, we were trying to avoid this one, but as we turned left, we had more weather in there, okay? And that would have been the same if we would have turned to the right, most probably, okay? Because then as we turn, the weather radar discover other weather. So what you can do, you can still turn to the left in there, okay? So in real life, if there is weather, you should have it in here, okay? So the weather radar of this simulator, I don't know why, it doesn't update that quickly, okay. So before we had the same situation, here was clear if the weather works great, okay, that is an information that you can trust, that there is no weather in there. So what you do, you turn slightly more to the left and you avoid that the weather in there as well, okay. And the problem with doing by doing all of this is that, as you can see, okay, as you can see, we are making our route a lot longer, okay. So we might increase our route by 50, 60, 70 miles depending on the weather, okay. And that's why you actually want to have extra fuel when the weather is bad around, okay. So 60 miles, let's say, at this speed of 250 knots, okay, it's going to be approximately 12 minutes, okay, 12 minutes, all right? So 12 minutes, depending on the aircraft, can be quite a lot of fuel, okay? So 12 minutes could be 400 kilograms of fuel, 500 kilograms of fuel, depending on your altitude, depending on your aircraft, and so on. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got a pretty good track. We found out that that is maybe a pretty good track to avoid this weather phenomena. What we do, we actually continue on that track, okay? Then once we get in here, we turn right, and then we join, we go back on our route, okay? In order to go around this precipitation, okay? Again, guys, we are just assuming that we cannot climb, because in this case, the best option would have been just to climb, okay? If you would have climbed, you climb at 20,000 feet, and you just pass over the weather, and not a big deal, okay? You're not burning any extra fuel, and nothing is going to happen there, okay? So as you can see there, we can actually increase the range to see what's the weather like in there. The weather reader is a little bit slow to update, okay? Here we go. So it looks like that we are doing a good, now we are clear of weather, we are going in the right direction, okay? Again, by dealing with this weather, you always need to focus the inside and outside, okay? Even though we will not gonna go into the weather, because into the bad weather, we will still find out, we will still get into some turbulence, that's for sure, okay? Because if you look outside, you can see some clouds in there, and depending again on the clouds, then with experience you will be able to find out what type of clouds can actually make more turbulence, okay? Normally, as you can see, even though you can say, well, that's not much of clouds, okay? But if you look behind these clouds in there, you can see the CBs in there, okay? And this CB is this part in here. So that's why you want to trust your navigation display when taking decision where to go and which weather to avoid, okay? Because sometimes these CBs are embedded. That means that you cannot see them until you get close, okay, by looking outside. But the weather radar is able to spot them, okay. All right, now the wind is actually pushing the weather away from us. If we would have gone to the right, the wind would have pushed the weather inbound with us, okay. All right, very good. So yeah, that's what you should do, okay? Then you get to the point where you actually go up, beam the weather, and then you turn right again. You report to ETC that you are clear of weather, and ETC will actually clear to go to the right point, okay? And the route will have been something like this, okay? You go straight, then once you are around this, you turn right in there, and then you join the route, because our route will have gone like that, okay? Let me see, I'm not very familiar with the Boeing 777, yeah. So as we saw, that our route was going like that, but in here there was the weather, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna fly around the weather and then come back in here, okay? So it will take, oh, here we go, sorry. Let me try to do it again, because the weather was there. So it will take a long time before we're gonna avoid all of this. So I'm not gonna avoid all the weather, okay? We're just gonna do the final thoughts, and then we close the video. Yeah, that's the thing, okay? So our route was this one, okay? So we're going inbound this weather in there completely. So the plan is to go around like that and then come back, and okay, and then continue the route, okay? There is one thing, I'm gonna close this video by telling you that there is one thing that normally you should take into consideration when trying to understand where to go on the weather radar, is that there is this black spot. Okay, the black spots are when the waves or your weather radar find out that there is a big CB in there. Okay, that big CB will actually hide the weather that is behind it. Okay, so let's say that this was a huge CB, not this case, but this was very thick CB, where the waves that you sent from your weather radar came back, and then they didn't actually go through the weather, the CB, in order to spot the weather behind. Okay, sometimes when the weather is critical and you have a huge CBs, okay, very strong CB. Sometimes behind, even though it's clear, you might still have the precipitation, but it is not there because the weather radar is not actually able to spot the weather, because the waves came back and they didn't go through in order to spot the weather was behind the strong CB. Okay, so these are all the things that you should think and consider when dealing with the weather. Okay. All right, guys. If you want to support, guys, the channel, just give a like, press the like button. Okay, that will work with the algorithm on YouTube in order to support the channel. If you have any question, leave a comment below, and then I will help you out. Also, go to pilotclimb.com where you can subscribe for free pilot training content. I wish you a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.